I want to talk to you about the process that finally helped me heal so much trauma, which was to be able to gently heal the trauma of my life in a pleasurable, loving, really present way, so it didn't feel so scary and overwhelming, but was something I actually wanted to do on a daily basis. Think like gentle self-massage in a gorgeous bathtub with candlelight. Think actually doing pleasure practices to release some of my deepest fears. I'm going to share with you exactly how to do those practices in this video so that you can make trauma healing not only effective, but deeply pleasurable. So sometimes in our culture, we seem to romanticize having trauma or really deep trauma bonds, but not actually the true glamour of trauma, which is to heal and integrate at such a deep level that you become so powerful, perhaps even more powerful than if you'd never experienced the trauma in the first place. So if you think like Romeo and Juliet, like tons of familial trauma, tons of relational trauma, and then they like die at the age of 14. Or Jack and Rose from the Titanic, right? So again, lots of trauma bonding, lots of like messed up energies there. And then again, Jack dies before they ever get to realize their highest capacity as a couple through the healing and integration of their traumatic wounds. But oftentimes we've been told these very romantic stories in our culture that are all about like pain and trauma bonding and wound mating. But then we don't see the deep, hard work of integrating those trauma patterns that actually gives you the truly glamorous, sexy thing, which is being a mature AF integrated individual who has felt and faced your wounds so that you can show up in the most delicious, magical way with people in your life. So I'm going to walk you through 3 ways that you can gently heal and integrate trauma through one of the living experiences that I still carry. So I was investigating this recently that it doesn't happen in person as much, but it happens via text, where it really shows up if I really, really like someone or something has turned sexual. And I'll send a voice note or a text. And the voice note or text is like totally cool, totally normal. Like it's me, it's awesome. And in the ensuing time period when I don't hear back, I feel a tremendous amount of anxiety. Like my whole system goes into anxiety. And it makes me sort of spin into irrational stories that I did or said something wrong. So this shows trauma because it's a strong somatic response happening in my body that feels like it's more related to past experiences than to what's actually happening. And it tends to distort my mental field so that I start saying like, oh, maybe I said or did something wrong, even though rationally, like I know I didn't say or do anything wrong. Now, when I dive into this anxious pattern inside of me is my little girl, right? It's a part of me that in growing up didn't feel stable love. In fact, I often felt blamed and shamed and made wrong for things that were totally innocent on my part. So because part of my childhood experience was innocently just doing my thing and then experiencing a loss of love from the people who I relied on for my survival, I'll now get very anxious in the same experience of I feel like I need your love or want your love and I'm not hearing anything back. And because I got imprinted so often that I would be made wrong for what I had expressed, I go anxious. So I use these exact 3 practices to hold my anxiety, not because there's anything wrong with me, but because I have this tenderness and compassion for this little girl who went through that. And as well, it helps me actually show up with, let's say, the person who is going to text me back, instead of spiraling in a story of like, oh, they've made me wrong and now it's all over, da 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 da. I can hold the part of me that wants to tell that story with tremendous love and then continue to meet the person who I'm connecting with, not from my trauma, but from my integration. And as I share these practices, if you want to take them into a guided practice step by step and make it much easier to follow along and do the process yourself, I've included down below a healing breathwork guided audio that you can do to really hold yourself just like this so that your life becomes less of an expression of pain from the past and more of an expression of the queen or royal sovereign or king inside of you. So you can go ahead and find that audio download in the description box below. There's a link for it. You sign up for it. It's totally free. Get started with it. It is an amazing and very, very healing practice and something that you can do every single day. Remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of these practices. So for all of these practices, I do want to offer a disclaimer that if you have really intense trauma and you've never worked on it before, you've never addressed it, then you really want to see an expert. So a licensed psychotherapist or a coach with trauma training who can hold you through the process so that you're really directed to resource and integrate in a way where this process ends up unfolding in the healthiest possible way for you. These practices are designed to be done if you are trying to release things that you know are there, but they don't overwhelm you and overwhelm your life or ever cause you to do harm to yourself or others. So these are meant to empower you with tools so that you can hold yourself through these processes as well. So the first tool is to reintroduce safe pleasure to the body. And what this means is oftentimes when we've experienced trauma, we are afraid to feel the good thing. So for me, in my anxiety, what is it that I'm actually afraid to feel? I'm afraid to feel the love between me and the other person. Why? That seems crazy. Like, why would I not want to feel love between me and another person? Because I got so conditioned to believe that as soon as I love someone, it's going to be broken, right? I'll be shamed or blamed or something terrible will happen. And so in order to avoid the pain of feeling lost love, I preempt with anxiety. So when I go into anxiety and believe that there's something wrong with me or I must have done something wrong or the person's going to abandon me, I avoid the pain of ever losing love. And so for me, what I need to do is to start experiencing that it is safe to have the pleasurable feeling again. Now, the pleasurable feeling changes depending on what it is that was the original cause of your issue. So you want to seek for what is the thing that I would like to feel or that I would desire to feel instead of the wounding pattern that I'm feeling instead. So what this looks like is letting your body move while you have the experience of the thing that you have been conditioned to be afraid of. So this can look like shaking. It can look like slow dancing. It can look like sensual movement on your bed or on a yoga mat. And what you want to do is to allow yourself to feel the feeling that you've been so afraid of. So for me, this looks like, oh, there is a connection of love between me and this person. Letting myself feel that love through my heart and letting myself make it safe again. So as I shake or as I dance or as I move sensually, and I let myself feel the love between me and the person that I've been feeling anxiety around, I also tell myself, I hold the part of me that believes it's not safe to love. And I almost like stroke her and whisper to her and let her know it is safe to love. It is safe to love. It is safe to love. And so what you want to do is reintroduce the pleasurable feeling, whatever that is, and tell yourself and the part of you that has learned to believe that it's not safe to feel that it is. And again, this is very gentle. It's like a minute of shaking. It's one song to dance to. It's a little bit of sensual movement where you literally hold yourself and let that experience that you've been running from for so long start to feel safe again in a very gentle way. The second tool is to feel your feelings with presence. So what can often happen is we start to reject, resist, and numb out from our feelings because they're uncomfortable, right? So usually when you have these wounds from the past, what happens is you will start to avoid them subtly. And so what this looks like for me is when I'm feeling really anxious because someone hasn't texted me back and I'm telling myself a story that is completely delusional, is I will judge my own anxiety and I'll say to myself, oh, this is crazy. Why are you feeling this? You shouldn't be feeling this. It's, feeling anxiety like this, like you're a teacher, you should know better, right? This is unhelpful for me because what that anxiety is looking for is to be felt and loved in a way that it never has been. So what I have to do is retrain myself to say, okay, come here, anxiety. Who inside of me is feeling this anxiousness? And how can I hold her and love her in her anxiety? So what I'll do is let that feeling of anxiety come into my body, but in a very gentle way. I'm not like, oh, let me feel all of my anxiety since the beginning of time and go into a full panic attack. Instead, it's this gentle, loving invitation for the part of me that feels anxious to receive love from me, to be cuddled. And if I need to, I might cry out some of the stress of the anxiety, but I'll feel myself in a really loving way. And instead of repressing or numbing out, I hold this anxiousness. Now, the key to making this pleasurable is I like to feel myself as the mother goddess holding this anxious part of me. And I normalize the anxiety too. Like, who here on the planet has not felt anxiety? So instead of shaming and blaming this part of me, which is also what happened when I was younger, I re-imprint the relationship by saying, number one, I can feel you. I'm an adult now. I can feel my own anxiety in gentle, loving ways. And number two, can I actually hold myself as I'm experiencing my anxiety in a really soft, loving, beautiful way? Like, can I hold myself so deeply that I feel profound love, so that it's not this feeling of like, I'm feeling anxiety and it's so uncomfortable, but it actually starts to become pleasurable. Because every single time I feel something that's uncomfortable or wounding from the past, what I end up being able to do is re-imprint that I can feel more self-love when I invite myself to feel the thing that I've been trying to avoid. And I do this by holding it and not just feeling it, but feeling it with more love and more compassion than maybe I've ever felt before. It's like I challenge myself for this part of me that's struggling to feel the level of love that I wish I could have felt from my own mother when I was experiencing that wound when I was young. And the final tool is to do gentle breath work. So gentle breath work means that you don't have to push yourself way beyond your edge, but you can do a deeper, fuller breath than you might be ordinarily accustomed to in a very safe space. You can do it by yourself or with a practitioner. And what happens with this breath work is that you can hold yourself with a lot of deep love. And as you breathe and feel and really understand yourself, you can stroke your skin. You can make it sensual. You can breathe in pleasure. And so what I like to do is if there's a part of me that's feeling anxious, I'll literally put on a piece of music. I'll use the healing breathwork practice that I'm sharing with you today down in the box below. And as I play that, I will add pleasure. So it's like I will feel the part of me that's feeling stressed or anxious over the experience. And I will literally feel it, breathe into it, love it. And then I will add sensuality. I'll stroke my own skin. I might turn it into a pleasure practice. And what happens is I retrain my nervous system from avoiding this experience into actually associating pleasure and goodness with my challenging emotions. So now instead of splitting and being like, oh, I'm overwhelmed and this is so painful and this is so hard and it like grates on my nervous system, instead it's like, oh wow, when I invite gently some of my anxiety into my body and I love and hold myself with tremendous tenderness, then what happens is it's like anxiety doesn't feel like such a horrible experience anymore. I actually integrate in my nervous system and it becomes something that I can feel while also choosing to feel sensual or pleasurable or really connected to my body at the same time. And what this does is it means that certain wounds from sexuality or from relationships or from intimacy no longer have to dominate my reality. Because as soon as something is so overwhelming that I can't feel it or it stresses me out or I go into a really negative state when I feel it, I'm going to start avoiding it and it will unconsciously control me. When I make safe, warm, beautiful spaces to hold my challenging experiences, what happens is that over time, I start to feel like all of my feelings are okay and they can all be held in a safe and beautiful space rather than a really overwhelming or painful space. So these are some of the practices that have really helped me integrate everything from anxiety to really deep sexual trauma to deep and profound fears. And again, this isn't replacement for good psychotherapy or medical advice. It is to be used alongside of working with professionals so that you can know how to hold yourself in the most loving, gentle, and pleasurable ways. So go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel for epic sex and legendary love. And I'm really looking forward to you feeling more love, more pleasure, more containment in all of your feelings.